I spent over a decade as a park ranger in the wilds of northern Alaska, where the nights are endless and the silence is absolute. At first, I took the job to run from my past, but I grew to love the frozen mountains, the diamond-bright stars, and the eerie beauty of the northern lights. But that peace didn't last. A few years ago, people began vanishing without a trace, and as the disappearances mounted, I started to witness things in the snow, things no one could explain and no one would believe. What I found out there still haunts me. It started with a hiker named Daniel Briggs. His wife reported him missing after he didn't return from a weekend trip to the backcountry. At first, we figured he'd just gotten turned around. Happens more than you'd think up here. But when we checked his base camp, everything was still neatly packed. Sleeping bag rolled tight, food untouched. No note, no signs of struggle, just an empty tent in the middle of nowhere. The search lasted 4 days. We covered 30 square miles on foot and snowmobiles, even brought in dogs. Nothing. No body, no torn clothing, no broken branches. Just silence. The weird part was the weather. Dead calm the whole time he was out there. No storms to disorient him, no sudden temperature drops. Just a man vanishing into thin air. Then it happened again 2 months later. A hunter this time, local guy who'd spent his whole life in these woods. His truck was still running when we found it, door hanging open, rifle leaning against the seat like he'd just stepped out for a minute. His thermos was still warm. That's when I started keeping a list. 3 disappearances that winter, 7 the next year. Hunters, campers, even a couple of Park Service employees. Always the same, no signs of a fight, no animal tracks, nothing left behind but the stuff they carried. Alaskans know how fast winter kills you. If someone gets lost here, you usually find them within hours. You find their gear scattered or their body half-eaten. But not this. I remember the first time I felt it. Early morning patrol near Dead Man's Creek, snow coming down light and steady. That prickling on your neck like someone's watching you, only there wasn't anyone for 50 miles. I turned my head slow, scanning the tree line, and for a second I thought I saw something standing between 2 spruce trees, taller than a man, but hunched. Then the wind shifted and it was gone. Probably just shadows. Probably. The stats say nearly 3,000 people have gone missing in Alaska since 1988. Most are found within days, some aren't. There's a section in our training manuals about standard search procedures, about patterns and probabilities. None of that matched what was happening. No clusters near rivers or cliffs where accidents happen. Just random points scattered across the map like something was picking them off one by one. By the 3rd year, I stopped telling my supervisor about the weird stuff. The way my patrol cabin's front door would be wide open when I got back, even though I swore I'd locked it. The shapes moving at the edge of my headlights during night drives. The sounds, not animal noises, not wind, but something that almost sounded like words whispered just out of earshot. It all came to a head that January during a blizzard. I was out with Ace, my partner, checking on a remote hunting cabin. Radio had been silent for days. Something had smashed every window on the north side of the building. Deep gouges in the door frame, like claw marks but too wide for a bear. Inside, the wood stove was cold, but 3 plates of food sat on the table like they'd been served right before. Steak, potatoes, even a beer poured into a glass. No one touched their meal. No footprints leading away. Just 3 grown men gone between one bite and the next. Ace didn't say much on the ride back. Neither did I. We both knew bears don't open doors from the inside. We both knew whatever took those men wasn't in any field guide. The blizzard came in fast that night. 1 minute the snow was falling steady. The next we could barely see past our headlights. Ace and I were riding snowmobiles near the Koyukuk River, checking on some abandoned mining cabins. The wind howled so loud we had to shout just to hear each other. Our radios kept cutting out from the interference. Ace pointed at something near a stand of spruce trees. At first I thought it was just shadows from the swirling snow. Then I saw them. Footprints. Fresh ones. Maybe minutes old based on how the wind hadn't filled them in yet. They stretched in a straight line toward the tree line. Each one sunk deep like whatever made them was heavy. Too deep for a human. We killed the engines and got closer. The footprints didn't have tread marks, not boots, bare feet. That's when I saw the blood mixed in with the snow. Not splatters, but full handprints pressed into the ground like someone was crawling, except the fingers were too long. The palm prints were twice the size of mine, and between each set of handprints were deep gouges, claw marks maybe. Ace pulled out his flashlight. The beam cut through the snow, following the trail. The distance between the prints changed. First, they looked slow, methodical. Then the spacing got wider, like whatever made them had started running. On all fours. I remember thinking no human could move like that in deep snow, especially not barefoot. We radioed it in, but static was all we got. Our breath came out in white puffs as we argued about whether to follow. Ace wanted to wait for backup. I told him whatever left that trail might still be bleeding out there. In the end, we went. The snow soaked through our pants as we walked, our boots sinking up to the calves. The trees swallowed us. The footprints led to a patch of disturbed snow. Something had rolled around here, maybe fell. More blood. Then the trail veered sharply west, heading toward a frozen creek. That's when we heard it. A low grunting sound, like air being forced through a clogged pipe. Our lights caught movement ahead, something pale against the snow. Ace yelled, "Hello?" Like it might be some lost hiker. The thing turned its head, just for a second. I saw too much white, eyes reflecting back at us with no pupils, its mouth opened too wide, showing blackened teeth. Then it lurched sideways and was gone behind some boulders. We both froze. Ace's hand shook as he reached for his sidearm. I remember thinking how wrong its body looked. The proportions were off, shoulders too narrow, arms too long. It had moved wrong too. Not like a man running, not like any animal either. More like a spider, all jerky and unnatural. The radio crackled. Dispatch finally came through asking our status. Ace told them we'd found an injured animal and were returning to base. I didn't correct him. What would I say? That we'd seen a naked man with claws running through a blizzard? That his footprints started normal behind the boulders but changed shape, became more spread out like he'd grown extra joints? We followed our own tracks back to the snowmobiles. The wind had already covered most of the blood trail. By morning, there'd be nothing left. I kept looking over my shoulder the whole ride back. Once, I thought I saw something keeping pace with us in the trees, but it was probably just branches moving in the storm. Probably. Ace didn't talk much at debrief, just filed the report as possible animal attack like we'd agreed. Neither of us mentioned the handprints or the way the thing had looked at us. That night at the station, I pulled out an old wildlife guide, flipped to the track identification charts. Nothing matched. Bear prints are rounder. Wolf tracks are smaller. The closest thing was maybe a wolverine, except those don't walk on two legs. I didn't sleep well for weeks after that. Every time the wind howled, I'd jerk awake thinking I heard that same wet grunting sound. Then 3 days later, we got the call about the trailer park. That's when things got worse. We went back out there 3 days later. The storm had eased up just enough to make tracking possible. Ace and I took snowmobiles loaded with extra fuel and ammo. The temperature read -40 on my gauge, cold enough that exposed skin would freeze in minutes. I wore 3 jackets under my parka and still felt the bite through my layers. The track started where we'd left off, those deep, barefoot prints leading toward the creek. But something had changed. The stride length had nearly doubled overnight. Whatever made them was moving faster now, covering ground in huge leaps. We followed them west for about 2 miles before the snowmobiles started struggling. The engines kept cutting out in the cold. That's when we saw it. Just a flash at first between the trees, pale against the snow. It wasn't running away this time. It was standing perfectly still, facing us. Too tall, shoulders hunched forward at a wrong angle. The wind shifted and I caught the smell. Rotten meat and something chemical, like cleaning supplies. Ace gunned his snowmobile toward it before I could stop him. The thing didn't move until he was maybe 20 yards out. Then it turned its head. Not its whole body, just the head. Too far. Human necks don't twist that far. Its mouth split open in what might have been a grin. That's when I saw it was holding something small and dark against its chest. At first I thought it was a rabbit. Then I recognized the shape of a child's boot. I yelled for Ace to stop. He was already braking when the thing moved. 1 second it was there, the next it had covered 50 feet in 2 strides. No human moves like that, especially not in snow up to its knees. I had my shotgun up but didn't fire. Ace was in the line of sight. The creature paused just long enough to look at me. Its eyes reflected the snowmobile lights back at us. No pupils, just flat white. Then it was gone behind a ridge. We radioed in a mayday call. Static. Tried 3 times before dispatch came through broken. Ace was breathing hard, his goggles fogged up. He kept saying, "Did you see that?" like he needed confirmation. I didn't answer. My hands were shaking too bad to reload properly. The science says humans can't function at those speeds in extreme cold. Muscles freeze, tendons snap. At -40, exposed skin gets frostbite in under 5 minutes. This thing had no clothes, no protection. And it moved like the cold didn't touch it at all. We told dispatch we'd spotted a wounded bear. Standard procedure when you see something you can't explain. They sent a helicopter to extract us since our snowmobiles were acting up. The pilot asked what kind of bear leaves barefoot prints. Ace changed the subject. That night at the station, I pulled the missing persons files for the past 6 months. 3 kids under 10 had vanished from different villages, all during storms, all without tracks leading away. I didn't sleep much. Kept seeing that boot in its hand. 2 days later, we got the call about the trailer park outside Fairbanks. Family of 4 torn apart inside their home. Blood everywhere. The responding officer said it looked like something had tried to chew through the walls. The baby's crib was empty, except for 1 tiny sock soaked red. Ace and I drove out there in silence. We both knew. This wasn't some random animal attack. Whatever we'd seen in the storm was hunting now, and it was getting bold. The trailer smelled like a slaughterhouse. Blood had sprayed up the walls in arcs, still dripping when we arrived. The parents were arranged, not just killed, positioned, facing each other across the kitchen table like they were about to eat. Their hands were placed palm up on the tabletop. Empty. I found the boot print near the back door, same shape as the ones we'd followed. Too long, too narrow. The toes left sharp indents in the linoleum, not nails, but something harder, something that could cut through frozen ground. Ace puked in the sink. I didn't blame him. The CSI team arrived an hour later with their cameras and evidence bags. They took one look at the scene and called it a bear attack for the paperwork. Nobody mentioned how bears don't usually set the table afterward. The smell hit us before we even opened the trailer door. Blood, mostly. That coppery iron stench. But underneath it was something worse, spoiled meat and a chemical tang like ammonia. Ace hesitated with his hand on the doorknob. His breath came out in quick white puffs. I nodded at him, and he pushed the door open. The inside looked like a bomb had gone off. Blood sprayed up the walls in wide arcs, some reaching the ceiling. Furniture was overturned, cushions ripped open. The kitchen table was set for 4, plates neatly arranged. The parents sat in their chairs, or what was left of them. Their bodies were arranged, facing each other like they'd been having dinner when it happened. Their hands were placed palm up on the table, empty. I stepped around a pool of congealed blood near the doorway. My boot stuck slightly when I lifted it. The cold had slowed the drying process, but not much. Ace moved toward the back bedroom, flashlight shaking in his grip. I followed, scanning the floor. That's when I saw the first footprint. Long, narrow toes splayed. No shoe marks, just bare feet walking through blood. The baby's room was the worst. Crib bars bent outward like something had forced its way in. The mattress was soaked dark red. A single tiny sock lay in the center, damp and crumpled. No body. Ace made a choking sound and turned away. I checked the closet, the dresser drawers. Nothing. Just that one sock left behind like a sick joke. Back in the living room, I noticed the pattern. Blood splatter analysis wasn't part of our training, but you didn't need a degree to see how wrong this was. The spray didn't match any animal attack I'd seen. Bears go for the neck first. Wolves drag their kills outside. This looked more like something had played with them, taken its time. The CSI team arrived 3 hours later. 2 guys from Fairbanks in full hazmat suits. They took one look at the scene and started whispering to each other. I overheard one say, "Jesus Christ," under his breath. They spent 4 hours taking photos, collecting samples, marking evidence. The lead investigator kept shaking his head like he couldn't make sense of what he was seeing. At one point, he pulled me aside, asked if we'd noticed any signs of forced entry. I told him about the back door, frame splintered inward, lock still engaged, like whatever came in didn't bother turning the knob. Just shoved straight through. He wrote that down but didn't say anything. Later, while they were packing up, I heard them arguing about the blood spatter. One guy kept saying it looked too organized for an animal. The other insisted no human could inflict that kind of damage barehanded. They left without giving us any answers, just a promise to send the lab results when they came in. We stayed to secure the scene until the coroner arrived. Ace sat on the porch steps, staring at his hands. I walked the perimeter again, looking for tracks. Found one clear print near the propane tank. Same shape as inside, but this time I saw the claw marks at the tips. 5 of them, too evenly spaced to be natural. The coroner took one look at the bodies and called it a bear attack for the paperwork. Said it was the only thing that made sense given the trauma. He didn't mention how bears don't usually set the table afterward. Didn't ask why only the baby was taken. Just zipped them up in bags and drove away. Ace and I spent the next week waiting for those lab results. They never came. Official report listed the cause of death as animal predation, and the case was closed. I made copies of the crime scene photos before they were filed away. Studied them at night when I couldn't sleep. The blood spatter didn't match any known animal attack patterns. The bite marks, if they were bite marks, didn't correspond to any local wildlife dental records. And that footprint, too long for a man, too narrow for a bear. The case file gathered dust in some storage room while Ace and I kept patrolling the same woods where that thing had come from. We didn't talk about what we'd seen. Didn't need to. Both of us started carrying heavier firepower after that. Both of us started locking our cabin doors at night. And when the reports came in about strange lights near the old mining tunnels up north, we volunteered to check it out. Not because we were brave, because we needed to know. We found the entrance 3 miles north of the trailer park. The snow had melted in a perfect circle around it, like someone had drilled straight down into warm earth. Steam rose from the opening in thin wisps. The crack in the ground looked man-made at first. Straight edges, smooth walls descending at a sharp angle. Then I noticed the claw marks scoring the stone. Whatever made this didn't use tools. Ace radioed our position to Jansen, the new CSI who'd been assigned to the missing persons cases. She arrived an hour later with metal climbing gear and gas masks. Said the sulfuric smell meant possible hydrogen sulfide pockets. I didn't tell her we weren't worried about gas. We rappelled down single file. The walls were smooth, almost polished in places. Not limestone like most Alaskan caves. This was some kind of volcanic rock that reflected our headlamps in weird ways. The air got warmer the deeper we went. By the time we hit solid ground, it felt like walking into a sauna. Our breath didn't fog anymore. Jansen took samples of the rock while Ace and I scanned for tracks, found them almost immediately, those same long footprints, now clearly defined in the fine dust coating the floor. They led down a sloping tunnel barely tall enough to stand in. The ceiling brushed my hair as we walked. 20 minutes in, I spotted something pale caught on a jagged rock. A scrap of fabric, pink with tiny yellow ducks. The same pattern as the missing baby's pajamas from the trailer. It was damp, like someone had been chewing on it. Ace looked at it and didn't say anything, just tightened his grip on his rifle. The tunnel opened up suddenly into a wider chamber. The smell hit us first, rotting meat and that same chemical tang from the trailer, only stronger here, like burnt hair mixed with ammonia. Our headlamps showed bones scattered across the floor. Some looked human. Most didn't. One skull had eye sockets too large. The jaw fused shut. Jansen whispered something about limestone erosion creating natural chambers. I wasn't listening. The footprints led to a hole in the far wall, about 3 feet wide. The edges were smooth like the entrance. Warm air blew out of it, carrying that rotten smell. That's when we heard the first shriek. Not animal, not human. Something in between. It came from deep in the tunnel system, echoing off the walls until I couldn't tell which direction it was coming from. Then another answered it. Then a dozen more, some higher. Some so low I felt it in my chest. Ace backed toward the exit. Jansen had her flashlight pointed at the hole in the wall. Her hand shook. The shrieking got louder, coming in waves now. I grabbed the baby's pajama scrap and stuffed it in my pocket. Somehow that felt important. Like evidence. We moved single file back toward the entrance, walking fast at first, then jogging when the shrieks got closer. The tunnel seemed longer going back. At one point I swore the walls pulsed slightly, like the rock itself was breathing. Jansen later claimed it was our headlamps flickering. I didn't argue. The climb back up was worse. The ropes swayed as we ascended, our boots slipping on wet rock. Halfway up, something growled below us. Not from the tunnel, from the side of the shaft. I looked down and saw movement in a shadowed alcove. Pale skin. Too many joints in the arms. Then my headlamp caught its eyes. Solid black this time, no white at all. It didn't blink, just watched us climb. We made it out right as the sun was setting. Jansen wanted to seal the entrance immediately. Ace agreed. We used the winch on my truck to drag a boulder over the hole. It took 3 tries to get it positioned right. The whole time, I kept expecting to see fingers curl over the edge. That night at the ranger station, Jansen typed up a report calling it a geothermal anomaly, said the sounds were probably steam vents. Ace didn't contradict her, just sat cleaning his rifle over and over. I pulled the baby's pajama scrap from my pocket. It was warmer than it should have been, almost body temperature. When I turned off the lights, it glowed faintly for about 30 seconds before fading. I threw it in the metal trash can and left it outside. The next morning, it was gone. The trash can lid was still on. Nothing else was missing. 3 days later, we got word of a newly collapsed mine shaft 20 miles east. The locals reported strange lights coming from it at night. Ace looked at me when he heard. Didn't say anything. Didn't need to. We both knew that wasn't the only entrance. We went back down 2 weeks later, this time with rifles, flares, and Jansen from the CSI unit. The entrance had changed. The boulder we'd rolled over it was pushed aside like it weighed nothing. The tunnel walls glowed now, not our headlamps. The rock itself gave off this sick purple-blue light. Jansen said it was bioluminescent fungi. I didn't care what it was called. It made my skin crawl. The light got brighter the deeper we went. Our shadows stretched weird on the walls like we were underwater. The air smelled sour, like meat left out too long. Ace walked point, his rifle barrel sweeping ahead. I could hear something moving inside tunnels, not echoes, something alive. The chamber opened up sudden. One moment we're squeezing through a narrow passage. Next we're standing in this huge cavern. The ceiling dripped with glowing strands like spiderwebs. The floor was littered with bones, human, animal. Some I didn't recognize. That's when we saw them. At least 20 of those pale things crouched near the far wall. Their heads jerked side to side like they were listening to something we couldn't hear. Their eyes reflected the glow, huge and dark. They were clustered around something big, really big. The insectile monster lay in a depression in the rock. Its body was swollen, covered in red chitin plating. A hood flared around its head like a cobra's. The pale things kept shuffling forward, dropping hunks of meat into its mouth. One brought what looked like a deer carcass. Another dragged an old man by the ankle. His face was gone, just ragged flesh left. Jansen made a choking sound. One of the pale things turned its head our way. Its lips were missing, teeth exposed in a permanent grin. Ace raised his rifle slow, too slow. The things screamed, not a warning. More like a dinner bell. They came at us in a blur, all spidery limbs and snapping jaws. I fired first. The shotgun blast tore through the lead creature's chest. Black blood sprayed across the glowing fungi. The others didn't even slow down. Ace emptied half his magazine into the crowd. Bodies burst apart, but more kept coming. Jansen fired wild, backing toward the tunnel. I saw one of the things leap at her. Its claws ripped through her jacket, but she kicked it off. The monster in the center reared up, its hood flaring wide. It opened its mouth and this awful chittering sound filled the cave, made my teeth vibrate. The eggs started moving then. Dozens of them, each the size of a dog. They pulsed under their membranes. Something inside scraped at the walls. Ace and I backed against each other. He was breathing hard. I could feel his shoulders shaking. The creature's hood snapped forward, spraying some kind of mist. It hit the ground near Jansen and the stone actually bubbled. Acid. She screamed and staggered back. One of the pale things tackled her. I turned to shoot, but Ace was already on it. His rifle barked 3 times. The thing's head exploded. That's when the monster lunged, fast, too fast for something that size. Its mouth gaped open, showing rows of needle teeth. Ace shoved me aside and took the hit. The thing's jaws closed around his arm. I heard bones snap. Ace didn't even yell, just jammed his pistol under its hood and fired. The monster reared back, shrieking. Ace's arm came away with it. Blood pumped from the stump. He went white but stayed on his feet. Jansen grabbed him by the vest and hauled him toward the exit. I covered them, firing until my shotgun clicked empty. The pale things shrieked but didn't follow. Maybe they were tending to their wounded queen. Maybe they wanted us to suffer. We made it back to the surface somehow. Jansen tied a tourniquet around Ace's arm while I radioed for medevac. His skin was already gray where the monster's spit had touched him. Infection set in fast. By the time the helicopter arrived, his veins stood out black under his skin. The medics put him on IV antibiotics, but he just got worse. Back at base, Jansen pulled me aside. Said Ace's blood work didn't make sense. White cell count through the roof, but no known pathogen. Whatever got inside him wasn't bacteria. Wasn't anything we could treat. 3 days later, Ace started begging me to end it. Said he could feel things moving under his skin. I didn't believe him until I saw the lumps. Little ones at first, then bigger. They pulsed like the eggs in that cave. The doctors wanted to quarantine him. Call in CDC. Jansen argued against it. Said they'd never let him go if we did that. Ace grabbed my sleeve with his good hand. His fingers were cold. He didn't have to say it. We both knew what came next. I waited until Jansen left the room, gave him my backup pistol. He nodded once, didn't even hesitate. The shot echoed off the concrete walls. Jansen came running, but it was done. She looked at me and I saw it click behind eyes. This wasn't just some animal attack. Whatever was down there was changing people, making new hunters. She didn't report it, just called it sepsis on the paperwork. That night I burned Ace's bedding. The smell reminded me of that cave, like meat gone bad, like something growing in the dark. Ace lasted 6 days after the cave. The first 2 weren't so bad. He complained about the pain, but we figured it was just a bad infection. We cleaned the wound with boiled water, wrapped it tight. Standard procedure when you're 3 days from the nearest hospital. By day 3, his skin turned gray around the bite. By day 4, black veins spiderwebbed up his arm. He stopped eating on the 5th day. Just sat in the corner of our bunk room sweating through his clothes. The smell got worse. Not like normal infection. This was sour, like spoiled milk left in the sun. Jansen came by to check his vitals. She didn't say anything when she saw his arm, just tightened the tourniquet higher. I noticed her gloves were double layered. That night Ace started begging. First for more painkillers, then for water, then just to end it. His bunk was soaked through with sweat. In the dim lamplight, I saw movement under his skin, small lumps traveling up his arm toward his chest, like something alive was crawling through him. "Shoot me," he whispered. His voice sounded wrong, too wet. "Please, before it gets to my head." I told him to hang on. The medevac would come in the morning. He laughed at that, a hacking sound that turned into a cough. Black spots dotted his pillow when he turned his head. "It's not bacteria," he said. "I can feel them. They're hungry." I didn't believe him until I saw his arm in daylight. The skin had split open in places, revealing dark strands underneath. Not muscle, something thicker, moving on its own. The wounds oozed fluid that smelled like the cave. That same chemical rot. Jansen came back at noon, took one look and stepped outside. She lit a cigarette with shaky hands. "CDC would quarantine him forever if we call this in," she said. "You know that, right?" Ace started screaming around sunset. High animal sounds that didn't sound human anymore. The lumps reached his collarbone. His eyes were bloodshot, pupils blown wide. He clawed at his own throat with his good hand, left bloody streaks. Jansen held him down while I prepped the morphine. Triple the normal dose. It didn't do anything. He just kept thrashing, begging between screams. That's when I saw his teeth. They were blackening at the gums. I took the shotgun from the rack. Ace saw it and stopped struggling. He nodded. Just once. Jansen stepped back without a word. The blast echoed off the cinder block walls, too loud in the small room. Ace slumped forward. For a second, everything was quiet. Then his body twitched. His remaining arm jerked sideways like something was testing the joints. Jansen crossed herself. First time I'd seen her do that. We burned everything. The mattress, the sheets, his clothes, even the medical supplies we'd used on him. The smoke smelled wrong, thick and greasy. It clung to my jacket for days. Jansen filed the report as sepsis. No mention of moving lumps or black veins. The paperwork got processed fast. Too fast. Someone higher up must have flagged it. I found out later they cremated him within hours. No autopsy, no questions. That night, Jansen showed up at my cabin with a bottle of whiskey. We didn't talk about Ace, just drank straight from the bottle, passing it back and forth. Around midnight, she said something weird. "They won't let us leave now," she said. "You know that, right?" I asked what she meant. She just shook her head and took another swig. Then she pulled out a folded piece of paper from her jacket. A map of the area with one spot circled in red ink. Not the cave we'd found. A different one. Further north. "Ace wasn't the first," she said. "There's a reason they station people like us out here." She wouldn't explain further, just left the map on my table and walked out. The next morning I found fresh scratches on my cabin door. Long, thin grooves in the wood. Too high for an animal. The security camera footage from that night was gone. Just static from midnight onward. I didn't report it. Didn't tell Jansen either. Some things you keep to yourself when you know nobody's coming to help. I started sleeping with the shotgun loaded. Kept a machete under the pillow, too. The nightmares got worse. Always the same one. Ace standing in the dark corner of my room, skin gray and splitting, whispering that they were coming up from below. I'd wake up sweating, certain I heard scratching under the floorboards. Could have been mice. Probably was. 2 days later, Jansen asked me to meet her at a coordinates point 10 miles from base. Said she'd found something I needed to see. When I got there, all I found was her pack. Empty except for 2 spent shells and a blood-stained glove. The tracks leading away from the site were those same long, splayed footprints, walking side by side with her boot prints at first, then just hers, dragged. Jansen waited until we were 3 days out from base camp before she said anything. We were scavenging for supplies in an abandoned ranger station near the old mining tunnels. The place had been empty for years. Windows busted out, snow drifted halfway up the walls. I was checking the pantry for canned goods when I heard her rack the slide on her pistol behind me. "Don't turn around," she said. Her voice sounded different, flat, professional. "We need to talk about what's really going on here." I kept my hands where she could see them. The floorboards creaked as she stepped closer. "The CIA wishes to take some necrovores alive," she said. Like that explained everything. "See if they can't be used as biological weapons in themselves." I asked what the hell a necrovore was. She laughed, but it wasn't funny. Just cold. Clinical. "You've seen them. The things in the caves. The ones that got Ace." She nudged my boot with hers. "Turn slow. Keep your hands up." When I turned, she had her pistol aimed at my chest, not shaking anymore. Steady as a surgeon. Her other hand held a small black case I'd never seen before. "A millionth of a drop of what that creature has could kill a man," she said. Weaponized septic shock. No cure, no trace. She tilted her head like she was studying me. "You're going to help me get a clean sample." I told her she was insane, that whatever was down there wasn't some lab experiment. She just smiled and pulled a badge from her pocket. CIA. Real or fake, I couldn't tell. "They'll quarantine this whole region if we don't contain it first," she said. "You think those things stay underground forever? They're spreading, adapting." She tapped the black case. "Only way to fight fire is with fire." The radio crackled on my belt. Dispatch checking in. Jansen's eyes flicked toward it for half a second. That's when I moved. We crashed through the rotten floorboards into the crawl space below. Her pistol went off, once, twice, but the shots went wide. I grabbed her wrist and slammed it against a support beam until she dropped the gun. She kneed me in the ribs hard enough to crack something. We rolled through the dirt and mold, trading punches. Jansen fought dirty, thumb to the eye, knee to the groin. Not law enforcement training, something meaner. I got my hands around her throat. She gasped, then smiled. That's when I heard it. The click of the backup piece she had strapped to her ankle. Ace saved me, even dead. His voice came through the radio on my belt, static-filled but clear. Pre-recorded Mayday call from 6 months back, just loud enough to make Jansen glance down. I headbutted her, felt her nose crunch. The gun went off as she fell. The bullet tore through my parka, but missed flesh. I scrambled for her pistol in the dirt, got to it just as she was bringing her backup around. I shot her twice in the chest. She didn't die right away, just sat there propped against a moldy wall, blood bubbling at her lips. The black case had popped open during the fight. Vials rolled in the dirt. One was cracked, leaking something clear and odorless. "Stupid," she coughed. "They'll just send someone else." Her hand twitched toward another vial. "You have no idea what's coming." I kicked the case away, watched her eyes track it. That's when I realized. She wasn't afraid to die, just afraid to fail. The radio crackled again. Dispatch asking for status. I didn't answer. Just stood there breathing hard, looking at the woman I'd worked with for months. The liar. The spook. Her breathing slowed. Stopped. I waited 5 full minutes before checking her pulse. Nothing. I took the vials. All of them. Buried her under a pile of rocks behind the station. No marker, no report. The CIA would know soon enough. That night, I played back Ace's last message on the radio, just static and coughing. Then 2 words, clear as day. Burn everything. I poured gasoline around my cabin, lit a match, watched it go up in flames. Then I started walking north toward the coordinates Jansen had circled on that map. Alone. The earthquake hit without warning. 1 second I was running through those glowing tunnels. The next, the entire world was shaking apart. Rocks the size of refrigerators peeled away from the ceiling. Dust filled the air so thick I couldn't see my hands. The tunnel behind me collapsed with a sound like 1,000 bones breaking at once. I kept moving forward because there was no going back. The screeches got louder, those same inhuman sounds from the chamber, but closer now. Much closer. My flashlight died when a falling rock clipped my shoulder. The only light came from the glowing fungus on the walls, pulsing like a heartbeat. I found the stream by accident. My boot slipped on wet rock and I went down hard. The water was ice cold but clear. I drank like I'd never see water again. Probably wouldn't. The taste was metallic, like licking a battery. When I wiped my mouth, my hand came away smeared with black. Not mud. Something else. The tunnel opened up into a massive chamber, easily the size of a football field. The ceiling arched high overhead, dripping with those glowing strands. The floor was littered with egg sacs, some as big as trash cans. They pulsed in the dim light. Things moved inside them, dark shapes pressing against thin membranes. I saw the carvings then. Etched into the far wall was some kind of relief. Stick figures kneeling before a larger shape. The detail was crude but clear. The big figure had that same cobra-like hood the monster in the other chamber had. The little figures were offering it something. Couldn't tell if they were giving gifts or being eaten. Alaska averages over 40,000 earthquakes a year. Most are too small to feel. This one kept going. Rocks kept falling. The screeches got louder. I counted 3 distinct voices now, maybe more. They were hunting me through the collapsing tunnels. I moved along the chamber wall, keeping low. My boots slipped on gooey strands that clung to the rock like spider webs. One of the egg sacs burst as I passed it. The thing inside was pale and squirming, limbs too long for its body. It made a wet clicking sound when it saw me. I didn't stop to see if it could follow. Halfway across the chamber, I found the bodies. Park service uniforms, mostly rotted away. One still had a badge pinned to its chest, Ranger Thompson. Went missing 2 years back. His skull was cracked open like a coconut. Brains scooped out. The ambush came near what looked like an exit. 3 of the pale things dropped from the ceiling without a sound. The lead one grinned at me with those blackened teeth. I had 4 bullets left in the rifle. The first shot took the grinner in the throat. Black blood sprayed the others. They didn't even flinch. Second shot missed. Third hit one in the chest, but it kept coming. The fourth went through an eye socket. The thing dropped, twitching. The remaining 2 closed in fast. Too fast. I swung the rifle like a club. Felt bone crunch. Then something raked claws down my back. I ran. Straight through the narrow exit, scraping skin off both shoulders, squeezing through. The quake had opened a new crack in the rock, just wide enough to slip into. The creatures howled behind me but couldn't follow. Too big, for now. The crack led upward. I climbed hand over hand, bleeding from a dozen cuts. The higher I got, the colder the air became. Then, impossibly, I saw stars. The crack opened onto a hillside somewhere north of the Koyukuk. I walked for 2 days before finding the village. An old Inuit man found me half frozen near his dog sled. He didn't ask questions, just brought me inside, gave me broth to drink. His wife peeled my shirt away from the wounds on my back. She made a sign with her hands when she saw the black streaks radiating from the cuts. The radio in their shack crackled with search bulletins. My name, Jansen's. The official story was we'd gotten separated during a routine patrol. No mention of monsters, no mention of caves. I drank the broth, listened to the dogs howl outside. The old man watched me with eyes that had seen too much. He knew. They all knew. The bulletins kept coming. More rangers being dispatched to search the area. More fresh meat going into those tunnels. I should have said something. Should have warned them. I didn't. The debrief lasted 13 minutes. They sat me in a small office with white walls and a single flickering fluorescent light. The man across from me wore a Park Service uniform, but his hands were too smooth. No calluses. No dirt under the nails. He slid a blank incident report across the desk and asked what happened to Jansen. I told him we got separated during the quake. Said I never found her. The lie came out easy, automatic. He wrote nothing down, just nodded like he'd expected that answer. Then he asked about Ace. I said sepsis. That got written down. The pen made a scratching sound on the paper. They left the case files open. Officially, Jansen was still listed as missing. Ace's death certificate said natural causes. My own report described finding an empty cave system with some unstable geology. No mention of eggs. No mention of things with too many joints. The paperwork processed within hours. Too fast. I tried CBD after the nightmares got bad. Found it by accident while searching online for something to help with the pain in my back where the claws had been. The stuff from CB Distillery worked better than the prescriptions they'd given me. Didn't stop the dreams, but made them easier to forget in the morning. The workouts were worse. I used to run 5 miles a day before Alaska. Now I can't go more than half that without seeing shapes in the trees. My hands shake when I lift weights. The doctors said it was PTSD. They didn't ask what caused it. Sometimes I drive past parks at night, sit in the parking lot with the engine running, watching the tree line. I don't know what I'm looking for. Just know I can't stop looking. The nightmares come less often now, but when they do, I wake up tasting that cave air, rotten and chemical. They reassigned me to desk duty, paperwork mostly. Missing hiker reports still cross my desk sometimes. I flag the ones with certain details. No footprints, warm food left behind, doors broken inward. The files always disappear within a day or two. Someone's watching what I look at. The old Inuit man sent me a letter once. No return address, just a postmark from Barrow. Inside was a small bone carving of a man with 2 long arms. No note. I keep it in my desk drawer where the cameras can't see. Sometimes I take it out and run my thumb over the grooves, wondering how many others have seen what we saw. They promoted me last year. More pay, nicer office. The move put me 3 states away from Alaska. I still get emails about search parties forming up north. Young rangers eager to prove themselves. I don't reply. The CBD helps with the shaking. I take it twice a day now. The bottle says 100% clean ingredients. 2 million satisfied customers. Sometimes I wonder how many of them are like me. People who know things they can't say. Who wake up sweating from dreams of dark places under the earth. My superiors never asked about the scars on my back. The doctors noted them in my file, but no one followed up. The black streaks from the infection faded after a few months, but the skin still feels wrong there. Too tight, too sensitive. When it rains, the old wounds ache. I keep Ace's last radio transmission saved on my phone. Just that static, then his voice saying, "Burn everything." Listen to it sometimes when the office gets too quiet. No one's ever asked about it. Last week, a new batch of recruits came through orientation. Fresh faces, bright eyes. One kid asked me about my time in Alaska. Said he'd requested assignment there. I told him to watch the weather. They're expanding the search grid in Denali next month. More rangers, more funding. The memo mentioned unexplained seismic activity. I marked it as read and closed the file. The CBD bottle's almost empty. I'll order more tonight. The nightmares have been worse since I saw that news report about sinkholes opening up in northern Canada. The footage showed dark shapes moving at the bottom. Could have been shadows. Probably was. Sometimes at night I press my hand against the bedroom wall and feel the vibration of the earth. It's just the subway running under the building. I know that. But in the dark, with the wind howling outside, it sounds like breathing. The paperwork on my desk never changes. New names, same stories. People disappear in the wild every day. Most are found. Some aren't. I don't look for patterns anymore. I still hear them sometimes when the wind dies down. Not voices exactly, more like whispers just below hearing. The snow doesn't feel peaceful anymore. Not after what I saw under it. If you're ever in Alaska, stay out of the caves. Doesn't matter how curious you get. Doesn't matter what you think you see moving in the dark. Some things should stay buried. I moved south after they discharged me. Still check the weather up north sometimes. When the reports mention unexplained seismic activity or missing hikers, I change the channel. Some stories don't need endings, just warnings.